People often say like father, like son, to talk about how kids can be a lot like their parents, whether in good ways or bad ways. But there's a big question. Should kids have to face problems because of the bad things their parents did? This question probably crossed the minds of many people affected by World War II, especially those who suffered in the Holocaust. When we think of Nazi leaders like Goebbels, Himmler, and Göring, we see them as really bad people. But they weren't just war criminals, they were also dads. You might think that the children of these Nazi leaders had really hard lives because of their parents' actions. But the truth is, their lives went in many different directions. Some of them actually helped war criminals, while others completely rejected what their parents did. In this video, we're going to take a closer look at who these children were and what happened to them after the war. We'll explore the different paths they took and how they dealt with the legacy of their parents' actions in Nazi Germany. Magda Goebbels, the wife of a high-ranking Nazi official, had 6 children, and all their names started with H as a tribute to Hitler. Having a big, pure German family was really important in the Nazi beliefs. Sadly, the fate of these children was tragic, and they became the last victims of their own parents. On May 1, 1945, when the Soviet army was about to take over Berlin, the Goebbels family was hiding in a bunker near Hitler's. Magda Goebbels made the terrible decision to poison her children before she and her husband took their own lives. She believed that the world after Hitler and the Nazi Party would be too bad for her children. She wrote a letter to her oldest son, Harold, who was a prisoner of the Allies. In the letter, she explained why she did what she did, thinking a kind God would understand her actions. Harold, who was different from his half-siblings, was kept as a prisoner until 1947. After his release, he lived quite a comfortable life. He was the heir to his biological father's business in the automotive industry. His life took a very different path compared to what happened to his siblings in the bunker. Let's learn more about him and his life after the war. Heinrich Himmler was one of the top leaders in Nazi Germany, in charge of the SS and many concentration camps. His daughter, Gudrun, who was nicknamed Puppy, looked like the perfect example of what the Nazis thought a German girl should be like. She was patriotic and often wore traditional Bavarian clothes. After the war ended, Gudrun and her mom were arrested by British soldiers. They were kept as prisoners until 1950. When Gudrun was released, she didn't change her beliefs about her father or the Nazi ideas. She even joined a secret group in 1951 that helped former SS members run away. One person they helped was Klaus Barbie, known for being very cruel to prisoners during the war. In the 1950s, Gudrun worked for West Germany's intelligence service, but in 1964, she lost her job, along with many others who used to be part of the Nazi Party. Gudrun kept her beliefs all her life. She didn't believe the Holocaust happened the way history says, and she always felt proud of her family name. She only used her married name when she needed to, just to make everyday life a bit easier. Gudrun passed away in 2018, still holding on to her Nazi beliefs. Edda Göring was the daughter of Hermann Göring, who was a big leader in Nazi Germany right after Hitler. As a child, she lived in a secluded house in Berlin and got lots of expensive art gifts from her dad. When World War II ended, Edda was only 8 years old. Her dad was caught, but she and her mom stayed at a hotel in an area controlled by the United States. In 1946, they were let go. During the Nuremberg trials, where her father was on trial, Edda visited him often until he ended his own life in October 1946. When she grew up, Edda worked in a clinic where she learned to take care of her aging mom. She went to a few events for her dad's old friends, but eventually stopped showing up in public. You know those art gifts Edda got as a kid? They were actually things her dad took during the war, so she lost most of them in legal cases. Edda didn't like to talk about her dad's role in the war, or what happened in Nazi Germany. In the rare interviews she gave, she only spoke about her family life and how much she loved her parents. One amazing story is about Ralph Mengele, the son of Joseph Mengele. Joseph was known as the Angel of Death and did terrible things in the Holocaust. When Joseph fled to South America in 1945, Ralph was just a baby. He grew up with his mom and grandparents in Germany after the war, which wasn't a happy place then. Ralph didn't talk much about his dad, but he eventually found out his father was the infamous doctor who did awful experiments during the war. Joseph wrote to Ralph using fake names to stay hidden. Ralph became really curious about meeting his dad, not because of love, but because he wanted to know more about him. Finally, in 1977, Ralph went to Brazil with a fake passport to meet Joseph. It was a very serious meeting. When they talked about Auschwitz, Joseph, who was 66 then, said he was just deciding who could work. Ralph later said he didn't believe what his mom had told him about Joseph, but he never told anyone where Joseph was. After that meeting in Brazil, Ralph stopped using the Mengele last name and took his mom's last name instead. Joseph Mengele died in 1979, but people didn't know about it until 1985. Ralph's story is really interesting because it shows how the children of people who did bad things in the war had to deal with their parents' actions. It wasn't easy for him to understand everything about his dad, and in the end, he chose to step away from that part of his life. Next, let's talk about Albert Speer Jr., the son of Albert Speer, who was a famous architect and a close friend of Hitler. Like his dad, granddad, and great-granddad, Albert Jr. also became an architect. Despite having a last name connected to the Nazis, he made a good name for himself in his job. From early on, he made it clear he didn't want to be part of the dark history of his father. He even openly said his dad did wrong things. At the Nuremberg trials, Albert Speer Sr. got a lighter sentence of 20 years in prison compared to others. He wasn't seen as bad as some because he didn't physically hurt anyone himself. His lawyer tried to show him as just an artist who got caught up in bad circumstances. But it's important to remember that Speer Sr. wasn't just an architect. He also managed weapons and production for the war. After getting out of prison, Speer Sr. wrote books about his life, trying to look like a normal person among really bad people. Meanwhile, his son, Albert Jr., had a great career as an architect. He designed buildings for the Olympics in Germany and China. He passed away in 2017, but his work still lives on. His office was involved in designing soccer stadiums for the World Cup in Qatar. Albert Speer Jr.'s story shows how he worked hard to be different from his father and have a positive impact through his architecture. He wanted to be remembered for his own work, not his family's past. The last story we'll look at is about Wolf Rudiger Hess, the son of Rudolf Hess, who was a top assistant to Hitler. Wolf was born in 1937 and named after Hitler's code name, Wolf. He's one of many children of Nazi leaders who didn't believe their parents did horrible things. Until he passed away in 2001, Wolf really admired his dad and even his godfather, Hitler. This shows us how different the lives of these children were. Some of them really stood by their fathers and believed in them, even if the rest of the world saw them as bad people. Others tried to live lives that were completely different from the dark past of their parents. The destinies of these kids show us that everyone chooses their own path in life, even if they come from families with difficult histories. Some tried to make things right or live a good life, while others couldn't let go of their family's past. It's interesting to see how each of them dealt with the legacy of their parents in their own way. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support means the world to us, and it helps us keep bringing you more great content. Thanks for being part of our community.